Heavenly Father, bless the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts. May they be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen. So today I'm a little bit excited because I get to share with you two of my most favorite things. And one of them is my favorite Advent hymn, O Come, Emmanuel, and how it is tied to the reading today of Isaiah 53. O come, Emmanuel. How do you say the words? I'd hope you come. It'd be nice if you came. Let's go to the condition of the one who is speaking. You need to ransom captive Israel because we mourn in lonely exile. Ever feel like your life needed to be ransomed? Ever feel like the patterns in your life have been so self-destructive you just don't even know which way you're moving? Have you ever felt the feeling of being in exile? That no one understands you, that you're all alone, that you keep living this cycle. It gets darker and gloomy. It's this state of being that I'm very familiar with, this state of being in which one cries out, O come, Emmanuel. It's not a wish, it's a cry for certainty. You promised you would come, so come. You promised you would come, so come. We know that you're faithful to your word. We know that you fulfill every your promise. But here we are in exile. Here we are alone. Here we are in the dark. We need Emmanuel, which means what? God with us. Who doesn't need that? Who doesn't need God with them? Who doesn't need to know that God is walking right by our side, that He is with us? Not just like metaphorically out there someplace sitting in a rocking chair, but is right here. Put His Spirit in our lives, and every single day He comes with mercies that are new each and every morning. He comes into our brokenness and our sinfulness. He comes. The question is, do we see Him? So many people living in this world and so many Christians living out their lives, and they don't see the God that they supposedly worship. So then we live a duplicitous life. On Sunday we're praising Him, and on Monday through Saturday we're wondering where the heck He is. So you see, the Son has to appear. Then we rejoice. Emmanuel shall come to you, O Israel. O come, thou rod of Jesse. David, the son of Jesse, warrior, takes down Goliath, takes down the Philistines. David is a warrior, rod, judgment. I need someone to fight for me. I can't do this alone. I need someone that is going to go before me. Like God promised Joshua, I'll go before you so that you will be victorious. Why do I need that? The writer of the hymn says, from Satan's tyranny, from the depths of hell, from Satan's tyranny. Are we yet exhausted and tired of living the cycles in our lives that we know aren't according to His will? Are we done? Are we going to still live the definition of futility, keep doing the same thing and think we're going to get a different result? Why sing the words? Why say them at all? There is one who comes and has come, and we're not seeing Him. He's broken the back of Satan. He's crushed his head. He's broken the chains of sin in our lives. He has set us free. Do we see it? Do we know it? Give us victory over the grave. Then we rejoice. Only jumping ahead about 4.5 months, but you're going to have the resurrection where Jesus rises from the dead even after He was crucified and dead. Well, dead people don't rise, but Jesus said He would, and He did. as an affirmative message that he has conquered death. He has conquered sin by taking upon himself. Come dayspring, come light. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night and death's dark shadow. Nietzsche, in his famous Madman poem, after he had philosophically killed God, begins to write this poem that says, why do we have to light lanterns in the middle of the day? Why does it seem to be getting darker and darker and darker even in the light of dawn? What is wrong with our world and what is wrong with humanity? Why do we not know which way is up and which way is down, what is right and what is wrong, what is north and what is south? How is it possible that we've lost all those things we once had? And Nietzsche says, we killed him, we killed him, referring to God. And Nietzsche spends the last 15 years of his life as the madman, insane. We live in a broken, sinful world, and it's gloomy and dark. And you can pour money into it, and you can polish it, and you can do everything you want. It's going to turn around and corrode, and it's going to corrupt you. This world has no answers. It'll tell you it does. This world cannot fulfill a single promise, but it'll promise you the world. When are we going to start living the life of this hymn? I live in a dark and gloomy world. I need to have Satan's back broken when it comes to how he cycles my life. I need redemption and forgiveness. I need it. Come, oh come, God with us. I can't do this without you. We then get to Isaiah 53. And the most stunning words. In my first year as a pastor, this was one of my memory chapters. I memorized this whole chapter, and it is the most astounding section of Scripture to me. It is where I go all the time when I start to doubt God, when I start to doubt Him at all, when I just come to this passage. Why? Because 700 years before Jesus was even born, Isaiah wrote words that describe the crucifixion of Jesus better than the Gospels. You can read Psalm 22 that was written 1,000 years before Jesus and Isaiah 53, 700 years before Jesus, and learn more about the death and resurrection of Jesus than in the Gospels. But the most stunning words, listen to me, the most stunning words of the first verse. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? After God does all of this, who's going to believe in Him? After God sets us free, who's going to believe? After God redeems and saves the world, who's going to understand? After God uses His right arm of judgment and crushes the devil's head and sacrifices His own Son on our behalf, who's going to care? Who's going to walk by this massively act of redemption and go, yeah, that's not for me? Who's going to continue to root their lives in the kingdom of this world instead of God's kingdom and say, that's not for me? I had a grandfather that through my whole time as a Christian would say, Tommy, that Christianity is good for you, but it's not for me. See, Tommy needed a crutch, but my grandpa, he needed no crutch. He had the world by the tail. Until it turned around and whipped him. And in 6 months, he died of a horrendous cancer. Whew. On his deathbed, as many of you know, I'm sitting there. I'm so angry at my grandpa. I'm so angry at God. I feel like I lost my opportunity to share the gospel with my grandpa because it is the only way that one gets saved. Because it's the one way that God created. I'm going to send my son into the world, and he's going to do it for you because you can't do it yourself. And he's going to offer you the gift of forgiveness. All you have to do is believe it. My grandpa was too proud, too much to live for. I'm the Lord of my own life. Until he wasn't. His eyes are closed. He's barely breathing. He's within hours of dying. And all of a sudden, as I have my back turned to him, he says, "Tommy." I turned around and looked at him with eyes wide open. He says, "Tell me about Jesus." And I did. With tears running down my face, I told him about how much God loved him. And that maybe he didn't have the world by the tail like he thought he did. But God had him. That even when in his rejection of God, God never rejected him. He says to me, "I'll see you there." And passes away not too long after that. Who's going to believe our message? This Jesus, he had no beauty or majesty that would attract us to him. The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Alpha and the Omega, became human and became very average. And I mean average always and only on the earthly side. Born in a city of Bethlehem that had no meaning, except that it was where David was born. Born of a virgin that's going to be accused of premarital sex her whole life. He was despised and rejected by men. Even his own town rejected him. Even his own family rejected him. "Oh God, you just don't understand what I'm going through." Are you kidding me? He's the only one that understands. It's we don't understand what he went through. We need to start understanding what he went through. He was a man of sorrows and acquainted with suffering. I see him weeping at Lazarus' tomb. I see him having compassion over people and spending all night awake, all night just preaching and teaching and healing and casting out demons and setting people free. Who wouldn't want a guy like that around? A broken, sinful world wouldn't, because they would still convince themselves that they've got a better cure. How blind and stupid is that? Who is this that's coming? Who is it? He was like a man from whom people hid their faces from him. He was despised and rejected by men. How about this verse? Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. For those of us who are Christian, we know that he bore our sins. How about that he bore our infirmities and carried our sorrows? That everything that is broken about this world, he bore. There are many theologians in the past that have written that every time Jesus healed a blind man, he felt the blindness just for a moment. Every time he healed a leper, he felt the death of the leprosy. Every time he cast out a demon, he felt it inside. He's absorbing it. He's taking it. It makes sense. If you look at the text, he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. This same Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." Who are you turning to? Where are you turning? Who's going to believe the message? It's too good to be true. 700 years before Jesus is born, it's already describing the one we know. Yet we're going to conclude, the kingdom of this world is going to conclude that he was stricken by God, smitten by God, and afflicted by God. If you're really the Son of God, come down from the cross. How about ponder the opposite? Why didn't he come down? Why didn't he call fire and hailstorms coming down from the sky and burn them all up like he did Sodom and Gomorrah? Because Jesus comes to redeem and to save. In order to do so, he has to bear what we've done. He has to bear what's due us. He was pierced for our transgressions, and he was crushed for our iniquities. 700 years. Who's this that's coming? Someone who's going to take my sin, my grandfather's sin, your sin, and take it upon himself as if he did it. He's going to be pierced with it. He's going to be crushed by it. And in actuality, the punishment that was due us is going to fall upon him, and we're going to get peace and healing. Who's going to believe this message? Who's going to see that this is the arm of the Lord doing exactly what he promised? Who, because they're hearing this message, is going to decide that I had better make it the center of my life? Jesus doesn't sit in the back seat. He does not become part of your life. He takes over. He kills the old and he raises the new. One cannot live with a foot in both kingdoms. Why wouldn't someone believe this? Who doesn't need it? And like anybody here raising their hand going, I don't need any of that. We yearn for it. We yearn for somebody to fix the infirmities, somebody fix the broken relationships, somebody fix what's going on. Isaiah is saying that Jesus is the one. That by his wounds we're actually healed. Yes, we like sheep go astray. We all go our own way, but he bore the iniquities of us all, our straying. Who doesn't need a God like that? I do. Why does he say, who's going to believe our message? Shouldn't it be, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't believe this message? Isaiah, why are you writing it this way? Because our sinful nature doesn't naturally get attracted to it. We still drink from the fluids of the kingdom of this world thinking somehow they're going to quench our thirst, when Jesus says, I am the living water and I am the living bread and I am the only thing that can quench your hunger and your thirst. Why do we keep going back to this kingdom looking for answers? Who's going to believe the message? It's already done. It is already done. This is the one who's coming, the one who can come and finish it all. It's finished. The price is paid. That's nice, man. I'm going to go live my life. What? Who can read this text and not go, and this is a life changer, this is a game changer? If somebody did that for me, how stupid it would be for me to reject it. How stupid it would be for me to not make it the center and the core of my life. When he was accused, he didn't open his mouth. He could have defended himself. He could have said, I'm innocent. He could have proven he was innocent. He didn't. He just let it come. He just let it come. It was for our transgressions that he was stricken. He was assigned a grave with the wicked, right? He dies with two thieves. but he's buried in a rich man's tomb. Now, right there, I would say to most atheists, tell me how this just happened. Tell me how in the world Isaiah wrote 700 years before Jesus' crucifixion and his death that he would die with two criminals and that he would be put in a rich man's tomb. Jesus couldn't make that happen. He was dead. But listen how it ends. Here's some harsh words. It was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. Listen. It was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. Why? So you and I would not be crushed and suffer. But I'm the one that deserves it. Right. And that's why it's called grace. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son to be punished and crushed on our behalf so that we would not. He bore our sins so that we would not have to face the consequences, and he bore a death that we will never have to taste. This is why Jesus says, I'm the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. My grandpa's not dead. My mom's not dead. My dad's not dead. They didn't die. They transitioned out of the kingdom of this world and into a new kingdom. But not only that, he becomes that guilt offering. And so now, look at resurrection. He will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hands. He's risen. He's not dead anymore. The resurrection is already talked about near the end of Isaiah 53. After the suffering of his soul, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. Mark it down. Look at it. It's the resurrection. After the suffering of his soul, after his death, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. He's come to justify the many. He will bear their iniquities. He was poured out unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. He bore the sins of many and made intercession. So who's going to believe it? See, the first question is still the question. I know all those times I tried to talk to my grandpa, I was telling the truth. I was speaking the word. It wasn't sinking in. And so every Sunday morning, we pray over this whole space that the Spirit of God would fall upon here and that we would see different, that would hear different and think different, that we would finally get out of our religiosity and realize the Father wants to have a relationship with us. That every single one of us is going to go face to face with Jesus. I prefer to do it right now. He shows us the Father's love. I'm going to lay my life down, and 3 days later, I'm going to pick it up again. It has to be this way. It's why I came. Father, take this cup away from me, but not my will, but thine be done. You ever thought about the fact that Isaiah 53 wasn't written for Isaiah? It was written by him, but not for him. It also wasn't written for the people of the time. It wouldn't be understood except that it was possibly a prophetic future announcement of what Jesus would be like. Isaiah 53 is preserved for us. God is providing evidence that I etched in words 700 years ago, a description of the crucifixion and the resurrection so that you would believe me. What other religious book has done the same? What other religion has done the same? None. What other religion says that God loves you so much, He'll bear your stuff? None. What other religion says that God will come and fill you with His Spirit and transform your heart and your life? None. And still, the question is begged, who's going to believe the message? Heavenly Father, I call on Ezekiel 37. A bunch of dead bones in the bottom of a valley. Father God, the question asked is, can these bones live? The answer is no, they're dead. But you said to the prophet, prophesy to the bones and speak to the bones my word. And the prophet did, Father, he did. He prophesied. He prophesied and he spoke your word, and all of a sudden the bones started coming together and became skeletons, and all of a sudden muscle and skin and all the stuff, and before you know it, a bunch of scattered bones were actually a bunch of dead bodies, but they're still dead, Father. But you said to the prophet, prophesy to the breath, prophesy to the Spirit, and say to the Spirit, come from the four corners of the world and breathe into these slain that they might live. And Father God, the prophet did. The prophet did. He called on the Spirit of God, and he asked the Spirit of God to come into that space and come into those bodies, and they did. And they did. And they rose up alive as a vast army. Jesus says to a pretty religious guy, unless you're born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. What does it mean to be born again? Am I supposed to enter into my mother's womb a second time? Like, I don't even understand what you're saying. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but spirit gives birth to spirit. Why are you surprised that I say to you, you must be born again? Listen to what Jesus says. The day you see the Son of Man hanging on a tree, you will know. Guess who was at the foot of that cross? A man named Nicodemus, who finally it sunk in. Who's going to believe our message? Anyone who's willing to do an honest look at yourself and realize you do not have the world by the tail and you never will. And until you realize that, it'll whip you and destroy you and beat you. This world does not have hope for us. But Jesus is our living hope. He has crushed the devil's head. He has borne the punishment that we don't have to bear. He has died a death that we'll never have to. And he promises that we can live an abundant life on this earth if we live according to his will, live according to his word, live according to the truths of his kingdom. I want you to have life and have it abundantly, Jesus says. This is who's coming. This is who's coming. As we pierce a glancing look into a manger, we are looking at the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, who has let go of his divine nature and has become one of us so that he might redeem us. How powerful is that? The heavens opened the day he was born, and angels had to proclaim a message to the kingdom of this world that now peace could be on this earth because a Savior has been born for you. Amen.
And it came to pass in those days that there went a decree from Caesar Augustus, that all the world shall be taxed. and all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth unto Judea, into the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was one of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered.
Joseph, I'm about to have this baby.
Let's find a place to rest. Do you have room in the inn for us to sleep?
I'm sorry, we are all full.
We are looking for a place to rest. Do you have any room?
I'm sorry, we do not have any room.
And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there is no room for them in the inn. And they were in the same country, shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over the flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them,
Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. And shall this sign unto you, ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, laying in a manger.
And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying,
Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men.
Let us go to Bethlehem.
And they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the baby laying in a manger. A few years later, behold, there came wise men from east to Jerusalem, saying,
Where is he that is born King of the Jews?
We have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him.
We come to see Jesus.
And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. The story of baby Jesus is the greatest story ever told. Let us all remember what this story means for each of us. If we come with haste to Jesus like the shepherds did, he will be there for us. Just as the wise men gave Jesus gifts, we can give him our heart and serve others as he would.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, all you kids, grab a bag here. There's a gift for you. And if there's any kids out there, there's a gift bag here. No, the donkey doesn't get one. But you're a good donkey.